Hey everyone, I'm just gonna wait like maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds, just for some people to uh, let that YouTube algorithm run a little bit and get people in the chat a little bit. It's just after 5. I was telling people I was gonna come on right at 5, so we'll give just a minute more and then we'll get going. Let us know where you're coming in, where you're tuning in from in the chat. If you that would be great to know where you're coming in from. I'm trying to find a time that's good for most people. I'm in Eastern Standard Time right now. It's 5 p.m. And I know some people in Europe and Eastern Europe um, are asleep right now. So perhaps morning would be better. In the chat, let me know where you're tuning in from. Okay, Mark's from Stratford, Ontario. Okay, great, Mark. You're right in EST too. The U.S. Ibanez Guitars. Okay, great. So you will likely similar time zones, and Seattle, West Coast. Okay, so you're earlier than us. So then this might be an okay time. I'll wait, I don't know, a little bit more. What I'd like to do in this lesson is, or not really a lesson, but it's titled Logic, GarageBand, and music production Q&A. And so I do these Q&As bi-weekly. Haven't done it in the last couple of weeks. I've just been a little busy and behind, so I apologize for that. This is going to be a Q&A. I have 4 or 5 questions listed in my notes here that I'm going to go through. And these are questions from course members who have taken my courses. So I'm going to go through and give them priority to answer their questions first. I also have a song, an artist by the name of Alex Richards. He sent me a song that I'm going to critique. I'll open up the Logic file later. This is a song of my own that I've been working on. So I'll kind of use that as a template to answer questions. Then I'll go and critique his song and give feedback. I do that every live session as well. So if you have a song or a Logic GarageBand file you're working on or any other DAW, doesn't matter, send me that, and then I choose an artist that I think I can provide valuable feedback, and then I go through them in this live session. Okay, so I think that's enough time to wait. Let's dive into the questions, and then I'll prioritize the questions as well in the chat. So, hey Jeff, great to see you. It's been a while, and so while I'm answering these questions, feel free to put them in the some in the chat as well, and then I'll just go through the rest of the questions in the chat. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll go through them in a matter of minutes. So the first question comes from Mitt, and he's taking my Logic Pro course. So he was, excuse me. He was asking me on an imported Midi file that he cannot control the gain or volume. So this sometimes can happen when you're working in Midi. And just out of interest's sake, notice this file I'm working on. And I'm just going to increase some of these signals so you can see. Notice how I don't have any Midi actually. And it's fine to work in Midi. I work in Midi a lot, but this song is more in the mix phase now. So I've converted all Midi into audio by bouncing things down. Now, Midi can sometimes be, there sometimes can be some like mysterious things that happen in Midi because you're not actually seeing the waveform of the signal. And I usually keep my drums in MIDI because sometimes I'm switching out samples. For example, these snaps and things like this. So the snaps, like you're familiar with MIDI, right? It's just a bar, but that's not actually visually representative of the sound. So, for example, a MIDI file you'll never see if an audio signal is peaking or not. So usually when you're in mixing, I always bounce down to audio, but that doesn't answer the question. Really, the question is like when you have MIDI, you cannot control, you cannot fade things in and out. For example, like this snaps track here. If I wanted to just bring up my fade tool and fade that out, oops. Why isn't my fade tool working? It won't even actually let me see the fade tool. So notice when I'm on the audio track and I have a fade tool here, I can fade something, right? When I'm on the MIDI track, I can't fade MIDI. I can't increase the gain in the region editor here on MIDI. Notice that it's grayed out. When I click audio, I have gain, I have flex pitch, and all these things. So a long-winded answer to a simple question, but when you're working in MIDI, if you find out things, you can't do some things, the answer could be because you're actually in MIDI, not in audio. So when you're sold on sounds, and you notice that I like say this in a lot of my videos and stuff, when you're sold on the sound, when you're working in MIDI, consider converting it to audio because you don't need MIDI anymore if you're happy on the sound. You really only want to stay in MIDI if you are still working on the progression, the pattern, you're still cycling through different software instruments and trying to find the right sound. But once you're happy on the pattern, the progression, and the sound, put that into audio and then work in audio. Okay, second question from Mitt would be, after adjusting the fine pitch, and anyone who's just coming in now, feel free to put your questions in the chat. I'm going to get to everyone's questions. I don't really have a hard stop. We'll go as long as we need to. And welcome to the live chat. So yeah, second question from Mitt, who has taken my Logic Pro course. He said, after adjusting the fine pitch in flex pitch, other notes drift from their settings. Why? Okay. The only thing I could think of, let's use an example. I'm trying to look for a file that's just going to be... Okay, let's just use the lead vocal as an example. So if we open up the editor and then run flex pitch, it's going to take a bit of some time. Okay, here it is. When you drift notes, so the question was when you're adjusting the pitch of the note, so this area, fine pitch, other notes drift from their settings. So I'm just going to drift this and see if I can recreate the issue you're experiencing. Yeah, the only thing I can think of here, Mitt, is that you're actually accidentally moving these audio signals left and right, which are affecting things. Because when you move up and down, that shouldn't affect the drift at all, unless you're actually going to the right-hand corners and affecting the drift. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are going on in flex pitch, and there's 6 different dials of things you can change on every single note you sing. So as soon as there's just a lot that can happen. So it's hard for me to answer that question because I'm not exactly sure what you're experiencing. What I would recommend is just making sure that when you do something, you go back. Like if I change this fine pitch to 0, and then I do something else, and then I go back. Just make sure you're not changing anything else. Like you go back to the same one and edit it again, because you could be changing something else. Okay, let's move on. Yeah, I see some questions in the chat. Cool. Keep those coming because I will get to them. I have 3 more questions to get to. Then I'll get to the chat questions. Then we can have like an open discussion or any other questions if anyone comes in the live stream. And then I'm just looking here. Yeah, we'll go through the song critique from Alex. Okay, next question, Mark. Mark had a question on what is the best way to send a Logic Pro file to another person with Logic Pro so they can open the project and have access to all the tracks, audio, and MIDI plugins, etc. Okay, so if the other person you're sending it to has Logic, then which is in your case they do, the best way is to actually find the file in your Finder window, compress it, and then send it over like Google Drive, Dropbox, WeTransfer, depending on the size of the Logic file. Usually they're big depending on how much you have. And once you do that, it's going to include all the audio, MIDI, and plugins in your session. So if I sent, let's just bring this up. If I sent this file to you, you'd be able to open this and it would be all the same, all the colors, all the tracks. The only thing that would be different is if you didn't have some of the plugins that I have. For example, on this lead vocal, if you don't have the Decapitator plugin, this is a distortion plugin by SoundToys, it's still going to be there in your inspector window, but there's going to be a little orange exclamation mark there and you're not going to be able to use it because it's not on your computer. So that's the only thing. If you have all the plugins, then it will just work exactly like I have it right now. So yeah, you go to the root folder in your Finder window, which is under Music. So like go to your name in the Finder window, go to Music, Logic, then find your Logic file, right-click it, and compress it, and then send that over in Google Drive or Dropbox or whatever sharing service. The other thing you can do is you can bounce every file down to audio with the effects on it and then send it to your friend, and they can open it and import all the tracks. For example, I can go File, Export all tracks as audio files, and this is going to open this window up. Now, if you do this, you'll want to, the biggest kind of most important checkbox here is bypassing the effects or not. So if you want to have all the effects hard-coded, baked in the files, then you would not bypass them. If you want them just all dry, all raw audio, then you would bypass them. That's another option you can do. This is a good option, and this is what you do when you're sending your files to a mixing engineer. You would actually this is bouncing down or exporting the stems of all the tracks. This is what you would do. Okay, let's move on. So I see the questions there. Yeah, Jeff and Anto, I see your questions. I'll get to them in a second. Let's keep moving. We have a question from Phil at West. He's asking if I can go over some mastering techniques. And that's a big can to open, but I'm happy to open it and briefly talk about it. Essentially, mastering happens, you can master inside the session a little bit, but more traditionally you would be mastering in a completely different session with one file, one stereo mix down of your song. So it's just the wave, just one wave file you would be working with. Now, just ignore that my fader on the master track is this low. You'd want this to be at 0, but I put it this low so when I play this track, it doesn't sound so loud, to be honest, because it's a mastered track. Okay, so what are some things you would want to have on a mastering strip? EQ, compression, and limiting. Those are the most important things. Those are what a mastering engineer would put on them. You can see here I have an EQ. I have a compressor. This is an SSL compressor. And I have a limiter. That's all you need. And there's no rules. You can add more things. The thing you have to be careful here is this is on the mastering chain, or sorry, in the master output, like the stereo output where all the tracks go to, so whatever you put on this track is going to affect everything. I also like to have sometimes a tape machine plugin that can add a bit of saturation. I like testing that out on the master output. And then these last plugins here, these are just meters. So it's showing me how loud the track is, and you need these meters to know what level you should get to in order for it to be loud enough on the internet, specifically like Spotify and Apple Music and things like this. So you can load up in Logic the level meter under metering, which is this plugin here. And if you change this to RMS and then change this little yellow bar to -8, you want your song to be peaking at this -8 RMS. And that's a standard to be loud enough and to compete at volume with other songs on the internet. Okay, I think that's probably the most I want to cover in mastering without going too deep into it. So next question from Roy is, and anyone just joining, I'm going through the questions. I'm prioritizing these questions from people that are course members, and then I only have one left, and then we'll go through any other questions that you have in the chat. Feel free to put them in the chat, and then I'm going to do a song critique later from an artist named Alex Richards. So we went through that one. Okay, Ray has a question. He's interested in doing a quick walkthrough to connect the Arturia Keylab in order to work inside Logic and using the Analog Lab 5 synth package that I use as well. So this could be good. Anyone who's struggling to connect their MIDI controller up to Logic. Specifically, not just like plugging it in and having it work, but you can actually, Logic is smart enough to, I also have the Arturia Keylab in front of me, and you can use the dials on your MIDI controller to do things in Logic. Like you essentially could map everything to your controller and not touch your mouse. That's a possibility. I don't do that because I'm quicker with the mouse, but I do use the controllers and like the dials for automation because sometimes I just want a bit more of a tactile approach. Okay, so just have to jog my memory here because I have to remember where this is. No. Yeah, okay, here it is. So it's so many things in Logic, you forget where everything is. So Logic Pro preference, I can't even remember where I just went. Yeah. Control surfaces setup. Then you can search for your controller in this area. So unfortunately, if you're using the Arturia Keylab, you have to use this one called Mackie Control, and that's going to link up your controller to Logic. And it's just as simple as that. So I can install another one, and you can see all the controllers here. Like, I'm sure a lot of you have some of these controllers, the Akai, the Arturias, Focusrites, Korgs, M-Audios, Novations, Rolands. They're mostly all here. And you connect it to Logic, and that's all it needs. It's mapped all of them to understand right away. And then yeah, that's set up. So once that's linked, I'll show you. You can just like add a new software instrument. Let's just say Arturia. And then you can go open the Arturia Lab 5. This is a great instrument package that comes from Arturia that you could also rent on a monthly basis through Splice. And then you can, I'm actually just touching my keyboard now, and I'm just filtering through sounds. And you can see here, like you can't really see because, sorry, the camera is not that wide, but I'm now like controlling the dials on the keyboard, and you can see it's moving at the bottom. Things are moving. I'm moving all these dials right now. And I have like, it's just much more tactile. You can use the synth as it is a synth in front of you. And that goes for every single instrument inside the Arturia package, which you can see there's a ton. I use this one, the Juno 6, a lot. And so I'll just open up the actual instrument. And you can see here I have the attack on my controller. I'm doing the attack here. The decay, I'm changing this knob here. The sustain, the release. So you have a synth, basically like a hardware synth in front of you that you can kind of have that analog feel. Cool. Let's keep going, moving on. Let's get into the chat now. Let me just catch up here. Okay, so Will was saying, I'll just go top down. Will was saying, how would you start an indie acoustic song? I would start with acoustic guitar and find like a nice progression. Like, this isn't probably going to come through that well, but. I would play through, find something you're happy with, and then get a solid recording of that, and then you can build things around it. Or you can write the song, just guitar and vocals. I think the main elements in like an indie acoustic song are the acoustic guitar, a really good vocal, lots of space on the vocal, and harmonies with like a small drum set. It's a big question, but I hope that kind of can just show you how I would approach it. Yeah, Jeff is saying that he's working on a new Matrix soundtrack. Oh, that sounds cool. Are you talking about like Neo and Trinity? Ironic to see the Juno bass as in Juno Reactor. I give you a special shout out. Indeed, I'm looking forward to this live. Oh, okay. Just a nice comment. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, Mark was saying, can you change the volume in a MIDI track with automation? Yes, you can. So as I was saying earlier, like when we're working with MIDI, it can become less flexible. However, you're right, you can go into the automation of a MIDI track. For example, this Snaps 1. I can open up automation, and still affect the volume. So technically you could do fades and things like that with automation. Yeah, that's very, very doable. Anton has tips on detail editing audio. Some tips there would be to really focus on the performance of the audio, whether that's a vocal or a guitar thing, whatever the audio source is, to get it really a good source. So if it's the vocal, then if you have a really great vocal take, you've spent the time warming up your voice, you spent the time getting the right takes, you've really are working on the timing of your vocal, the mood, the quality of your voice. Once that's done, editing and mixing is actually quite easy because it's already sounding good. The source is good. And then it's just about cleaning up like the dead space in between the vocal, tuning the vocal, maybe shifting it in time, making sure there's no pops, making sure there's no mouth clicks or snaps, making sure you have a nice compression on the vocal, and then adding like spatial dynamics to the vocal, like reverb and delay. I hope that kind of answers your question. Like it does come down to, like the detail does come down into for me, the pops and the clicks and all the things that can come out in a vocal, the S's, the harshness, when you start compressing things, it's smoothing those things out. That's what I like to get into. Okay, Jeff has another question. Automation tips for builds and risers natively in Logic when you get to it. No rush. Okay, cool. Automation tips for builds and risers natively. Yeah, I mean, a riser and a build can be done with any sound in Logic, or also what I like to do is trying to make the sound with something you have in the track. And here's a good example, like let me just play this song just so you can get a bit of a vibe before I just show you a piece of audio.
We'll go anywhere you want to, girl, we've got the time to see where this goes. No, I don't have to remind you, everything is fine, you already know. I will be there when you need me, always fully and completely. You're the only one who really sees me. I'll give you everything, I'll give you all I've got and more.
Okay, just to give you a bit of a sense of what we're working with here. There are actually lots of different risers and, what did you say? Builds here. For example, this part. That's actually what this is a sample of a bounce down track. That's actually the entire track over here that I've bounced down to audio, and then I've worked with that as a sample. So try to think like, I mean, this is a subjective thing, but I like to use pieces that are already in the track. So for one, it was made in the track, so it kind of already sounds good. Instead of bringing like another sample out of left field And then if you're just bringing samples from all over the place, it's kind of like a song that's just has no glue. But if you can use the samples of elements already in your song, the glue's already there. So this is the track, and I've just done some automation to it. I've just faded it in, actually. I can't now even remember what I did. Okay, I remember now. I actually bounced down a high cut frequency that's going up over time. So not a great example for me to show you that because it's already baked in the audio. Let's do another example up here. These sweeps. Just gonna turn that up so you can hear it. So a couple things are happening here. There is some automation, and these are just reversed Juno chords, or sorry, DX7 chords. So it's one of these chords. I think it's the last one there. So you can just find the chord if you probably have an instrument that you're using as your main progression. You can find the root chord. So if your song like is in B minor, find the B minor chord, and you can reverse that and use that as a riser. And you can add reverb on the riser. You can add a high cut frequency that kind of sounds like it's coming out of the water a little bit. And it sounds really good because it's already a sound that people are used to, but it's different, right? Because it's reversed and you're adding effects to it. So it sounds cool in my opinion if you do it that way. Let's see if I have some other examples here.
We will more. We can drift around the country. We'll always be carefree, do what we want. Living like we're in a daydream. I'm the king and you're queen. We'll write the plot. I will be there when you need me. Always fully and completely. You're the only one who really sees me. I'll give you everything. I'll give you all I've got and more. I'll give you all I've got and more. I'll give you all I've got and more.
And if you're starting out with, if that's like too uncomfortable for you to do to like find those samples within the thing there, Jeff, you could go and find like a crash hit in a Logic drum set. Let's just see here. I wonder if I have one up here. Here's a crash set. So you could just play a crash. Crashes are great to reverse. Like if I just reverse this little track here. Oh boy. That is so weird. This has never happened to me. Where's my region editor? It's never gone away on me. I didn't know how to get it back. If you just go, so if you go region and then reverse it, you'll get a great sweep. I could talk about sweeps and stuff all day, so maybe I'll just keep going. Yeah, Mark, just to touch on that again, you should send it as a folder and compress the folder. That would be my recommendation. You could also just compress the Logic file itself and it should be okay. Yeah, that's a J37 tape machine. It's a Waves plugin, Jeff. It's really nice. Also, another one that I just recently got is by Baby Audio. It's also another tape machine. It's called Tape, spelt wrong, but it's kind of cool, and it sounds nice. Actually, I have a discount for that. If you want, just send me a message. I can get you 10% off all the Baby Audio plugins, which are really nice. Francis, your question is, please discuss how to edit loud vocals and raising low ends, not with flex pitch. You mean when the singer is so loud at a regular microphone setup? So, yeah, is that kind of, I assume you're kind of talking about maybe metal music where the singer is quite loud. I assume something like that in the context of the singer like really giving it in a chorus, or maybe that's just the vibe, that's just the genre. I mean, if a vocal is loud, that's totally fine. You just want to make sure you're coming in at the right gain level, so you're not peaking, and that the tone and the performance is good from the vocal. Loudness shouldn't really affect that. And then you can kind of approach the vocal not being a loud vocal. It's just a vocal. It happens to be loud, but it's not like you should come at it from, or I think you should come at it from, it's just being a vocal. And then you decide, okay, how do you make this better? Well, in your case, you're trying to raise the low ends of the vocal. So if the vocal is sounding too thin, then is it the key of the song? Should you lower the key of the song so the singer doesn't have to sing so high so they can bring it down? That could be a thing. It could be that the singer's voice is just too high and you really don't like that, so maybe you need to find another singer. So a lot of this stuff is pre-done before you get to the stage where it's like, how do I make it better? In the stage of mixing, or the stage we're kind of in now, it's really not about fixing things. Those things should have been fixed already in the recording phase, or when you're doing the sound selection of things like that. So if you're trying to fix the vocal too much in this phase, there's a lot of things like subtraction things and brightness things we can do to the vocal, but keep in mind there's a lot to be done in pre-recording too. Oh, thanks for the kind words of the tune. Yeah, this is a song I wrote with a co-writer. His name's Adam Wendler, and we're just working on the mix of it right now. Okay, yeah. Josh, you want the rebate code for the tape tool? Yeah, let me just find that for you guys for a second. It will take like, actually, no, I don't have the code yet, do I? I'm still, they just sent me all the plugins and now I have the code. So give me a day. I'll get back to you on that. Anyone who's on the chat and wants the code, just send me a message on Instagram or an email and I'll get you back with that. And anyone watching this in the future, I'll have put it in the description by that time, so everyone can get it. Okay, no questions right now, so I'm going to dive into a song. I'm just going to open up a song from Alex, and this is an artist. His name is Alex Richards. He's taken my GarageBand course, and he's making, I think he wants to do 50 productions in the next few weeks, few months, I'm not sure. And I'm going to open up the Logic file where I have also a demo of the song in here. So I'm going to listen to this whole thing, and I'm going to provide some feedback. And he asked me like some questions. I'm going to answer his questions, and then just give my general opinion and work through some of this. So let's have a listen. Okay. Awesome job, Alex. I think there's a lot of potential there. And caveat, I forgot to share that Alex told me that when he sent me this song that he did the vocals really quickly for this, and it's not a final mix or production, so there's all that that grain of salt that you need to take it with, and that the vocals he did really quickly. So I'm not going to dive too deep into the like the vocal performance since Alex is already aware of that, and the production I'm not going to dive too deep into it, but I will make some comments. What I want to focus on and what his questions were specifically are based around like the strengths of the song. He wants to know also how I personally might approach it differently, the song structure, and he had a question of like, is it too much? Like how, you know, when you're writing a song, and I also get this too with my own songwriting, you question yourself, like, am I trying too hard? Am I doing too much? Should I pull back in some areas? Should I push more in some areas? So let's touch on that too. The first thing, for me, the strengths are the chorus. I think it's really catchy. I also think the melody is really nice. And I already remember it in my head. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. This part right here. Left me out in the pouring rain. Is that the best you could do? That part is great. I really like that part. I think it's super, and I want to hear more of that. So you only hear it twice. You can see it vocally because it's the loudest part in the song. Here and here. So with that, let's get into the structure. I think the structure can be improved, and one, hearing the chorus another time, and this will have this will impact how long I think the verses and the pre-choruses are. So a bit of an intro, which is a subjective thing. Intro. Let's see. I mean, it's worth a consideration just to start the song right here, like this. You know, I kind of like getting into it right away, but then again, intros are nice sometimes, but you got to remember if you're trying to market this song, again, when I get into feedback on your song, this is just me, and this is my subjective thing. So you have to take that with a grain of salt too. Doesn't mean I'm right. When I say cut the intro, and you're like, no, I want an intro, then go for an intro. Some of my favorite songs have intros. I'm coming at it from the perspective of like, you're trying to market this song based on my experiences with this. So take it with that with a grain of salt. That's mostly you, Alex, and anyone else listening. So I would cut the intro and start right at the verse. Said you wanted me. So let's make some structure here. So this is like a verse 1, and let's see if it lasts more than 8 bars. Said you wanted me. You said you wanted me. Okay, so this part here, you said you wanted me. The first part is good. You said you wanted me. Dun, 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 dun. You said you wanted me. I think it should be ending sooner. So it's like, instead of carrying out the me for another bar, this part here. And I'm just going to do some cuts here. Like, it could be something like this.
Said you wanted me. You said you wanted me.
I think there can be another cut here. Now, you wouldn't produce a song like this, and these cuts aren't going to make sense right now, but I'm just trying to get a bit of an idea of structure.
Said you wanted me. You said you wanted me.
And then the verse would keep going here.
I remember the day, I remember the day. You said you'd take me away.
And I think something should change here. Let's see.
I remember the day, I remember the day. You said you'd take me away. Oh.
Okay. Yeah, this is the part that threw me off. There is an odd number of bars that meet this pre-chorus that changes the melody, the vocal melody. And that really threw me off because I didn't, which sometimes is a good thing to throw the listener off, but it just seemed, I'm not sure how to explain it. It just didn't seem a comfortable transition, and it could just be the vocal. So I think the verse should be like, you said you wanted me. You said you wanted me. Then another one, and I don't wanna da 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 da. And then this part, da 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 da. And then having this pre-chorus come in right here. Let's just listen in here.
I remember the day, I remember the day. You said you'd take me away. I remember the day, I remember the day. You said you'd take me away. Oh.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a bit of a cut here. And actually change these like this.
I remember the day, I remember the day. You said you'd take me away.
Like this.
I remember the day, I remember the day. You said you'd take me away.
And then cut the music here. And then have that chorus come right here. So the pre-chorus
I remember
comes in here, and then the chorus comes in here. Let's just listen to that from the verse, just to see how that feels. Obviously, I've cut the whole thing. The lyrics are not making sense, only structure-wise.
said you wanted me. You said you wanted me. I remember the day, I remember the day. You said you'd take me away. I remember the day, I remember the day. You said you'd take me away.
Oh, wait, I missed the chorus. That's my bad. Right, there's a whole other part here. Okay. Now I'm lost.
I remember the day, I remember the day. You said you'd take me away. Oh.
Yeah, okay. It's this part here. I'm not sure what to think of it. It sounds this part sounds more like a bridge to me than anything else.
Clouds of white, lilies in the field, spread you out under skies of blue. You said I do when I put it to you. Why would you since you left me?
I like that part here. So I'm getting a little deep. I think the main thing here, Alex, and for anyone else listening right now, is if you're trying to be in that realm of popular music where you want your song to be played on Spotify or on the radio, and you're trying to really connect with a broad audience. So let's say that's one thing. That's one area. The other area is like if you don't care and you just want to make music and it's because you like it and you're going to listen to it and maybe some other people, but you don't care about that, then ignore everything I'm saying pretty much, because music should be flexible and should be to do what you want to do. But if you're in that first area where you want to reach a popular broad audience, then what I would suggest is having more structure to get to this chorus. That sounds really good, this part. Left me out in the pouring rain. Once that's tight and there's a better vocal there, it's going to sound really good, but it's taking too long to get there. I kind of want to hear this part within the first 40 seconds. And there, like, we have a bit of, even me doing some cuts. There's this verse part, there's this pre-part, and then this entire, actually the chorus is here. Then we kind of have this, like, I'm not sure what to call this, like mid-pre section. So it's taking us a long time to get to this part, and we have 3 different melodic structures or pieces here, and I think there's a lot of information to ask your listener to digest and consume before giving them the payoff of the chorus. So don't make your listener work too hard by throwing them lyrically, melodically, all the production at them and say, consume all this and understand where you are in the song, and then I'll get to the chorus. I would suggest choosing your favorite parts of these pieces, and choosing your favorite 2 parts, and make one the verse, one the pre-chorus, and then the chorus. So I think the strongest parts for me are your verse, and then this part here. Spread you out under skies of blue. You said I do when I put lilies in the field. Clouds. That part there. So you said you'd take me. I remember the day. I remember the day. You said you'd take me away. I remember the day. I remember the day. You said you'd take me away. Clouds of white, clouds. Clouds of white. It would be really helpful to know the tempo of this song, because then I can have things aligned to the grid. Quick way to do that in Logic is putting a BPM counter on the track itself, and if there's drums, you should figure it out pretty quickly. Me out in the pouring rain. Is that the best you could do? You left me out. You've got some nerve.
got some nerve. You've got some nerve. You said you wanted me.
Okay, so I was in the right tempo, and yeah.
You said you wanted me. I remember the day, I remember the day. You said you'd take me away. I remember the day, I remember the day. You said you'd take me away. Clouds of white, clouds of white, lilies in our feet. Clouds.
Doom, doom, boom. Clouds of what? Right here.
Clouds of white, lilies in our field. Spread you out under skies of blue. You said I do when I put it to you. Why would you
5, 6,
since
7,
you
8. And cut the music out there to have a dynamic drop. And then we will.
left me out in the boat? Since you left me out in the boat.
Roughly, I think something along those lines, because now we're coming in the chorus. I really like how the verses, there's a lot of energy in your voice and there's structure in the melody, and then the pre goes somewhere else.
Clouds of white, lilies in our feet.
And then it comes to the catchy chorus, which is actually right here.
Left me out.
So, in contrast, the chorus now comes in at, we're starting at 10 seconds up our 11 seconds in, we're starting the song, and we're about 1:03. So the chorus is coming in now before a minute. It's like 50 seconds ish, which is nice. And in that realm of popular music, you're trying to reach a broad audience. That's what I would aim for, something around there. Sometimes even faster. And this, because it comes in early now, you have the opportunity to duplicate the same structure in the second part and then add another chorus, then a bridge, and then another chorus. The other option there is you could start with a chorus too. Okay, yeah, kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to, I think this is a great chorus, and I really like what Alex has done here, and I think I'll just continue on a little bit with some of his questions that he had. If anyone's just joining, this is a song of an artist, his name's Alex Richards, and I'm just going through a little bit of some initial, this is my first time listening to the whole song, going through some feedback that he's asked me to give, and just some general thoughts that are coming up along the way. If you have any other questions about things, put them in the chat now, because I'm going to wrap up the feedback in a couple minutes, and then can take any more questions, and then I'll sign off. So feel free to get them in there. And you're welcome, 16% Sumo. Okay. So yeah, how I might approach this differently. I think I've kind of covered that. Is I'd choose smaller um, melodic pieces, so like a verse, a pre, and then have that go into a chorus, and that I would. I think there's a lot of strong parts that you've done here, but it's almost too much for me to know where I am structurally in the song. For example, when I listened to verse 2, the first time I listened to it, I wasn't actually sure if I was listening to a verse because it didn't exactly share the same melodic motif as this verse, and neither did the pre-chorus. So, like what you're singing here in the verse.
Said you wanted me. You've got.
You said you wanted me. You said you wanted me. That's a nice melody. So that tells me, and now that you repeat that, oh, I'm a listener. I know you're talking. I know you're in a verse. And so after the chorus, there's a different melody here. This second verse.
You've got some nerve. You've got.
It's totally fine. It's just being aware that the listener is now having to consume more information because they haven't heard this melody yet. Do da dun da. I believe not. I can't remember because we've done so many cuts here. But these are things to keep in mind and how I personally would approach it differently. Yeah, again, the strengths are in the chorus, in my opinion, and the melodic motifs that you put in the verses. And Alex had a question of like, is it trying too much, or does it go too many places? And that's an interesting question that you asked that, because I often find when I'm asking for feedback to my songs, I often ask for feedback that I kind of know, like I shouldn't have done that, or you're kind of trying to get a reassurance on things that you instinctually know, it's not feeling right. And so you're asking me, does it go too many places? And I personally think, yes, it does go too many places. So choosing your favorite pieces and making it more succinct, I think will help the song. And I think you probably knew that already because you asked it. And I often, when I just recently got feedback on one of my songs a couple of days ago, and I was asking the artist, she's a professional singer-songwriter in LA, and she said, "What do you want feedback on?" And I said, what did I say again? Oh, I was asking, can you give me feedback on my lyrics? I don't think, or asked her, do you think they make sense? And she was like, no, I don't think they make sense. And I kind of knew that. That's why I asked it. But I wanted her to say yes, they do make sense. So I could just be like, okay, maybe I was overthinking it. I wanted her to tell me it was making sense, but I knew deep down it didn't make sense. And so as soon as she said that, you kind of already know these things if you're asking the question. And that's all I'm going to give for Alex. I think production-wise, there's a cool vibe, there's a cool rhythm. I think having stops, like cutting the music out, having your vocal shine can be one thing to think about. Little areas where this spot. These spots are cool. One thing to be aware of, it's hard to keep the listener engaged in those spots, because if you're coming right out of a chorus, it's often good just to get right back into the verse. Again, sometimes it's nice to have digesting, breathing room, some things to think about. And the fade out, I actually would rather hear your chorus 2 times. I wanted to hear it again. So I wanted to like take this part and just kind of duplicate it again and hear it as a double. And maybe you can have some ad libs or a new instrument that comes in there. Okay, but I really appreciate that, Alex. Thanks for sharing your song. If anyone wants their song critiqued, just my general thoughts, if you're looking for like another ear on it, send me an email, and I collect those songs, and then I choose one to do in every live session. So please do that if you want another ear on your song. Okay, a couple of questions. Piano Key says, how do you break writer's block? You break writer's block by writing more songs. And someone taught me that, and I think it's true. I think it's writer's block. You know, you just gotta write. I don't remember how they explained it to me. I wish I could right now. Yeah, like you kind of have to write through bad songs to get to a good song. So if you change your mental model on writing, then there is no such thing as writer's block. For example, if you showed up in your studio or in your bedroom, or whatever, to write a song or on your piano, and you ask yourself, I'm going to write a bad song. That's the goal of your session, to write a bad song. Then that's pretty easy, right? Like, you can do that. And then at the end of it, you're going to have a bad song. But maybe it's not that bad at the end of it. So there's no such thing as writer's block, because unless you lose your, like, God forbid, you lose your ability to play, you lose your hands or your voice or something, then that's very much of a writer's block thing, because you actually can't physically do anything. But if you have the ability to play or to sing, there's no such thing as writer's block. You just have to think of it differently, I think. So go and write a bad song, and go and write 10 bad songs, and probably one of the 10 bad songs will be a good one. Now, Jeff, you're asking, how could he stay harmonized in the same key? I'm not actually sure what you're referring to. Was it a specific part in the song where Alex was like harmonizing? Because there were some cool, I did notice that as well. I did forget to mention that. Some cool harmonic melodies that Alex used. So I think you're probably referring to that. Icy Burst, how do you figure out what reverb to use? Also, the stream has been really insightful. Well, thanks for the latter. In terms of reverb, okay, how do you figure out which one to use? It would be based, in my experience, just what your goal is. So let's take a vocal, because usually most vocals have reverb. I would choose a small reverb to put on a lead vocal so that it stands out very close to your in your ears. When you close your eyes, it sounds like it's kind of close to your face, I guess. And then, so that's one. It's like the goal is to make the vocal sound close, so you use a small reverbs. And then if you're talking about the actual plugin, just choose the one you like best. I use the sometimes I use the Space Designers, the Baby Audio. They have a reverb plugin as well. Waves have good reverbs. Valhalla have great reverbs. all of these paid plugins, paid reverb plugins, they're all really good. This one I actually really like a lot. Probably use this one the most. And then coming back to that, I use a long reverb on a vocal too to make it sound very to have a lot of depth and space. So I would usually also always do my reverbs on bus sends, and then EQ the reverbs. You have a lot more flexibility to be creative with the choice of reverb and the plugins you put on a bus track because they're on separate tracks. And I'm not going to go down the whole black hole dead end of busing and reverbs, but if you do want me to go a bit more on that, just let me know in the chat. Yeah, you're welcome. You're very welcome. Jeff, should you always sidechain drums with claps? I've never done that, so I think you can do that. You're sidechaining your what piece of the drums? Let me ask you that. Like, typically I would sidechain like a bass and a kick drum, or maybe a synth and a kick drum. I use the purpose of sidechaining to add movement to a track that needs movement. So if you at all think like, hey, my bass track or synth track or reverb track, anything, if you're like, it's too stale, it's not moving, then you can use sidechain to do that. That's one way to do it. Sidechain also provides like space for another instrument to shine that are sharing the same frequency range. That's why in dance music you would typically sidechain pretty much the entire track, every instrument, to the kick drum. So whenever the kick drum hits, the whole the rest of the music, actually the volume is turned down a little bit. And sidechain, that's the first time you're hearing this, like the sidechain thing? I know that probably doesn't make sense. I do have some videos on that, and we could sidechain something here, but it's a topic that you should get comfortable with if you want to go down. It's a great little production thing to get ideas. It's also very much a mixing thing. Nice. Sergeant Butler just singing away. Never going to give you up. Never going to let you down. Never going to turn around. Desert you. Okay, so Okay, I'm just catching up here. Yeah, any other questions? Let me know. Now, I think it's been a cool session, and I had fun doing it. I really appreciate Alex like putting his song out there. I know that's really hard to do. I often, hold tight to the songs you just write that aren't done yet, and I think that's hard to share. So thank you, Alex. Oh yeah, you had busing would be interesting to know more about. Okay, so Joshua. Okay, so let's do something. like if I did a lead vocal here, typically on this lead vocal, let's not add any plugins, but just focus on the bussing, like of a lead vocal reverb. So I would add a new bus, and I just chose bus 20, and I go to the bottom and I do like a small, verb or short verb or whatever. Didn't change. And then I would add my reverb. I would typically choose a small plate verb that has a short decay, and I might spend some time choosing different rooms, maybe a smooth room, going through it like that, getting the right sound of reverb, and then you mix in the reverb as a send. So if it's as a send, you'd want to have this to 100% mix. In this part, you just have to choose the reverb that you like. It's not the question of how much should it be, because it kind of is, because you choose here the decay of the reverb, so it is choosing how long the reverb should be. And I'm going to do it on Alex's voice here. Actually, Alex, I've given Alex enough of a hard time, so I'll open up this track. Sergeant Butler, what's a good way to learn keyboard for a beginner? Choose your favorite songs that you like on the keyboard and learn them. I like to go to Ultimate Guitar. They have chord progressions there. Learn those chords. I like doing it that way as a beginner because it can give you the excitement and fulfillment of having fun doing it at the beginning. It's so important to enjoy it at the beginning, because it easily can be not enjoyable when you're playing scales and things. Although that is very important, and I suggest you do practice your technical skills, try to find the balance between building your technical skills but still having fun with learning how to play keyboard or a guitar. You got to enjoy it at the beginning, because that's probably why you got into it first. So one, play the songs you really like to play, or play with other people who are learning. Better yet, play with people who are better than you, that are willing to tag you along in a jam session, because they're going to show you a lot and you'll have to keep up with them. Okay, so let's do this here. I see your question, Joshua. Okay, let's just duplicate this track. We will bring these down. Let's start from scratch. So what's the difference between putting the reverb directly on the lead vox track versus on the bus? Very common question, and I'll tell you exactly the difference. So you'll notice that I have a reverb directly on the track itself. It's right here. It's called Valhalla, right? We went through it. And there's no wrong answer here. It's only a matter of preference and a technique. So you can add it on the chain. It's fine. However, you need to know that when you add it on the chain, it's going to be affected by things before it and by things after it. So, for example, if I have the reverb up here in the plug and chain flow, if I have the reverb there, it's going to hit the reverb first, then it's going to be EQ'd and EQ'd more, and then compressed, and then de-essed, and all these plugins after it are going to be affected by, or going to be affecting the reverb. So if you take it off the channel, then you're not in the plugin chain anymore. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I had it down here. So this decapitator here, this distortion, is actually distorting the reverb as well. And it's fine. You can do this stuff. The thing is, I like adding reverb on the bus, and why you would is, let's just add a new one. Now we have more flexibility because I can add a reverb here. And notice I have a whole different plugin chain. So I can add, and what you should think of adding is like an EQ here. And you could add a delay to that reverb. You could add distortion. You could add compression, modulation, anything you want. Like, this is how creative you can get with only the reverb. So to help you visualize that, I can right click on the small verb channel and create this track. So in the lead vocal track, not only do you have the lead vocal, this whole entire thing, you also have now, you've added a completely different track to the song. It's called the small verb. And now you play with the volume of the small verb. And I'll show it to you in action. So we have the vocal signal. And to connect those two, you have to send signal, right? So we send 100% of the signal, of the dry signal, to the small verb. And now we can control the volume. The other way to do that, if you'd rather not do it, is to control the amount of send. I'm kind of going a little quicker than I usually would in a tutorial, just to keep kind of things moving. But now let's have a listen.
We'll go anywhere you want to, girl. We've got the time to see where this goes.
Notice how it's got tons of reverb on it? Yeah, that's because the reverb volume is really loud. If we don't want that much reverb, we turn the reverb volume down, and now it will be a lot less.
We'll go anywhere you want to, girl. We've got the time to see where this goes.
And take a look at this. I can solo out the reverb. So if I turn it all the way up.
We'll go anywhere you want to, girl. We've got the time to.
So now you're listening only to the reverb. And now I have an EQ after that reverb, right? You should consider EQing your reverbs. Watch when I do that and you listen to it.
We'll go anywhere you want to, girl. We've got the time to see where this goes. No, I don't have to remind you where everything is. We'll go anywhere you want to, girl. We've got the.
Now I'm EQing not the vocal. I'm EQing the reverb. So they're two different things. You have two things going on, two tracks. You have the, almost gave everyone the finger. You have the lead vocal track, and then you have the reverb. So now that the reverb is EQ'd, we just mix in the volume. So we solo both out now.
We'll go anywhere you want to, girl. We've got the time to see where this goes.
And you should be mixing the reverb in context with everything, because that's how we listen to music, with everything in place.
We'll go anywhere you want to, girl. We've got the time to see where this goes. No, I don't have to remind.
Oh, and no wonder it's sounding really loud, because there's two vocal tracks here. I accidentally duplicated it. Or not accidentally, but...
We'll go anywhere you want to, girl. We've got the time to see where this goes. No, I.
Okay, so that's the reason that you would bust out reverbs and things like this. Another quick example would be if we add a delay on a bus track, like an 8th note delay or 16th note delay. In our case, more for the example, you would add like a stereo delay, and yeah, what? Okay, let's just do both eighth notes, and I'll add an EQ down here. But also, I'm going to add a reverb on the delay. So, and you can do this because it's on a bus track. You couldn't do this on the channel. If you did, it would be, you couldn't sculpt the delay and reverb because you'd be sculpting the entire dry signal of the lead vocal track. You need to like introduce a new track that you have complete flexibility on, and then you mix those tracks together with volume. That's what busing is. And when you can wrap your head around like this bus 33 and bus 34 are completely separate tracks. So I'm going to create a new track again. Create that track. Now we have 3 tracks with our vocal. You kind of think of it like that. And we can work on mixing in the volume of our delay.
Oh, I don't have to remind you, everything is fine, you already know. I will be there when you need me, always fully and completely. You're the only one who really sees me. I'll give you everything, I'll give you all I've got and more. I'll give you all I've got and more. I'll give you all I've got and more. We can drift around the country, we'll always be carefree, do what...
And now it's a question of taste and how much you should put in there. And you don't have to have these in the session as well. We could just hide those. You don't have to have them here. It was more for the purpose of visualizing that, to really get your head wrapped around that. Oh, that's a good question. Okay, next question, Lion 95. How do you move back and forth without having to use the top right sliders? So for me, I do a couple things. I have a mouse in my right hand, and actually, can you see it? I have a trackpad in my left hand. So I pinch zoom horizontally with my left hand, and I scroll and I hold Option and scroll down with my mouse to zoom vertically. So vertical zoom, you can hold Option in your keyboard and use your mouse scroll like this. And then horizontal zoom, you can also do that if you have a side scroll on your mouse. You could hold Option and do side scroll. I don't. I just have a trackpad, and I pinch zoom. The other thing, you can do Command and up and down arrows on your keyboard. Does the same thing, horizontal and vertical. And then another option is holding down Control Option will bring up the magnifying glass tool, so you can hover over anything. Like I'm hovering over this region, and it's going to zoom in. I can zoom in more and more. And if I want to get out of that, I can just hold Control Option again and click back out, and it goes back in. So I would be doing, like, if I wanted to just zoom in on that vocal there, I can go in and just take a look at it, like maybe move it or whatever, and then just zoom back out. This is all muscle memory, and you'll get used to it when you do it more often. Yeah, Josh, you can send multiple channels into one bus, and that's the other reason that I didn't really touch on with buses is, yeah, you could have a synth reverb bus. You could have a lead vox or a harmonies bus, and you can send multiple dry signals to that one bus. So it's productive in that way too, because you're sharing, all these tracks are sharing this one bus track. Okay, yeah. Line 95 says, how do you add a delay to just the last word or like phrase or word in a verse? Not the whole verse. So yeah, what you're referring to is also known as a delay throw. And there are different ways to do it. You can actually have one down here. I believe you're referring to like something like this.
Go anywhere you want to, girl, we've got the time to see where this goes. No,
So what's happening here is like an easy way to do it is, for example, if you want to like make the delay of this word
this
goes, you can add a new audio track or duplicate this. So Command D, highlight the section you want to bring down and make a copy of it like that. I just use the marquee tool there. And now you would add, you could literally just go and place it where you want to hear it. That's one way to do it. Or you can add a delay at, I don't know. Now, if you add a delay of a quarter note at 100% wetness, that means that this isn't going to happen until a quarter note after the lead. So it would sound like this.
See where this goes.
Oh, not like that, like this.
To see where this goes.
Or a half note.
To see where this goes. No, I don't have to.
So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is actually going in the automation of the lead vocal channel and adding the delay on the lead vocal itself, and then automating the mix knob. So if we do a quarter note or half note mix, you can see how it says mix there. So I would want it to be completely dry for the entirety, except in this section where I can now go 100%. And if I don't need this track anymore. So just listening to the vocal track.
See where this goes. Time to see where this goes. No,
not a good example, but this is what you would do. You'd have to smooth it out like this.
See where this goes. No,
that's another way to do it. Joshua's question, why do you cut off the low end when you're EQing things on the bus track? You don't have to, but when it comes to vocals and especially vocals, think of it like, because we're adding a new track and we're sending 100% of the signal to this bus track, essentially your dry vocal signal is going to be clashing with the reverb signal, because you don't necessarily need the entire reverb of your vocal. Reverb is great to add space, and usually this area of reverb, let me just dial it down for you so you can actually hear it.
No, I don't have to
Actually, I need to see where What am I doing? Like, I don't know if you can hear that through the stream. I'm going to increase it so you can... Oh, wait. This. So this is good. This is what you're essentially cutting out. You hear how bad that sounds in a way? Like, you don't need that. So you can kind of just cut it away. And now the reverb. So clear, right? So that's what you mix that signal in with your lead vocal that has the depth of it. Your lead vocal has this area. So you don't need the reverb to have it. Mixing vocals and finding a pocket for them on a pure instrumental is a bit hard, usually because the instrumental is already mastered for the most part and it clips. Yeah, that's super tough line to mix a vocal into a pre-mastered instrumental. Really tough. You can get there by finding the right space with reverb and volume and delay, but you're limited to the fact that you do not have the flexibility to change the other instruments in the track. So if you can get the stems or the audio files, that's going to be able to be much easier to get those things mixed. And you can also, on that line, you can add a compressor on the master track to glue the instrumental and your vocal together. So if you haven't tried that, you can do that and go for like about -2, -3 dB of gain reduction with a Logic compressor, and you'll glue those tracks a little more. Again, it's a challenging thing to do to mix an instrumental wave file or MP3 with a vocal track. Cool. I'm going to cut it there, guys. I think, and I'll see you. Yeah. Again, if you missed this, I went through Alex Richards. He's an artist, and he's taken my GarageBand course, and we went through his song, and I gave some feedback. The next live session that I'll do in a couple weeks, or maybe one next week, send me an email with your song if you want your song critiqued. And I go through as many questions as I can, and I give priority to those who have taken any of my courses. So thanks for tuning in, though, and I will see you around. Oh, wait, one more question. I'm a sucker for questions. Brad England says, "Hi, Charles. Have you ever used Nexus plugins?" I think actually... No, I don't. I haven't. Are they part of Isotope? I think I've heard of that. Anyway, sorry, Brad. I haven't used those. You're welcome, Jeff, and you're welcome, Lion. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time.